You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Today's episode is an iPhone extravaganza. John Harris and I will be speaking with several acclaimed photographers and how they've incorporated the iPhone into their day-to-day workflow. By now, most of you have probably heard that a new iPhone has been announced, and depending on your source of information, the iPhone 7 is either the best or worst thing that's ever happened to photography. As we're recording, the phone is not yet available, but our guest, Olivier Laurent, editor of Lightbox at Time.com, has had it for about a week now, and he's going to be joining us in the studio. He's going to tell us about how he got his hands on the new phone before the rest of us, and some first impressions of how it works as a camera. But before we speak, Olivier, we're going to be chatting with three photographers, each with their own iPhone story to tell. First up is Robin Robertis, a winner of the 2016 IPP, the iPhone Photography Awards. Robin will fill us in on the apps and accessories she uses to create her unique images. After a break, we'll chat with veteran photojournalist and documentarian Ed Kashi on how he's been incorporating the iPhone into his news and long-form reporting. Finally, we'll be speaking with Brendan O'Shea. You may be very familiar with one of Brendan's photos, as it was featured in the Shot on the iPhone 6 ad campaign. Brendan will tell us about his experience with the campaign and his photo work in general. We'll wrap up the show with Olivier Laurent, who has actually had a chance to use the new iPhone 7. Robin Robertis' work encompasses almost all that you can do with an iPhone, from straight photography to app-produced dreamlike imagery. Her background as a painter informs much of what she does, but it's clear, too, that the omnipresence of a phone has sparked a new creativity, particularly with her underwater-based work. So you're known as being an iPhone photographer, but what came first, the iPhone or the interest in photography? Just curious about that.
Oh, gosh, definitely the iPhone. I just hung around with a bunch of world-renowned photographers. I was very, very lucky. I followed. We have a group of guys that do a retreat every year. There's Jack Davis, DeWitt Jones, and Ricky Cook, and they run a Molokai retreat for photographers. And what was very interesting is that originally everybody was going there for Photoshop, and as the retreat and the years progressed, we all picked up these wonderful devices that were iPhones. And like I said, I wasn't a photographer. I just hung around with these guys, and I was always so intimidated. And then when this little iPhone came out, I just, I can't go wrong. There's just a couple buttons there, so I'm in love with it.
So you skipped the entire conventional photography experience. You went straight to the phone.
I kind of did. And actually, even before that, I'm an artist, I'm a painter, and I dove right into Photoshop before they were layers, just because of the fact that I'm a collage artist as well, and it was giving me the opportunity. I'm not proficient in my drawing skills or my painting skills, so to be able to photograph something and collage it together and then change my mind before I painted, it's just an incredible tool. I just couldn't be more happier.
Is your entire workflow in phone, or are you doing anything in a computer?
It's all in phone right now for lack of not being able to afford Photoshop a few years ago. Gosh, with all the apps, and there's more and more every day, it just allows me to do things that, that I could do in Photoshop and that now I wouldn't know how to do in Photoshop.
Can you describe some of the apps that you're talking about, and what are some of the things that they do?
Yeah. Special effects apps. First of all, I always open my images in Snapseed, just kind of tweak things around in there, and then you can Juxtaposer was one of the first applications that you could actually work in layers. You could take little composites and then throw them into another image. You have really fun apps like Tiny Planets, Symmetry, where you can mirror things. You have Alien Sky. You can throw in some skies. You can throw in effects.
Do you always return to kind of your favorite apps, or do you just kind of, you found a new one and you'd like to work with that for a while, and then another new one and you'd like to work with that one, and that influences the work you put out? Or do you kind of always return to a favorite with an image in mind?
Well, I I have my favorite go-to apps that I always go to, but every once in a while I'll take a class online. Susan Tuttle has a great mobile mastery, I think it is, and she'll throw in different applications. And just to get me out of my comfort zone, there was a really fun app that I would have never found on my own called Amazing Wigs. And when I find and I know when I find an app that I like, I tend to do things in series, and then then I'll drop it for a while.
And do you shoot through an app, or do you shoot just with the iPhone straight?
Yeah, mostly with the native. I will shoot in Vivid HDR is just an awesome app for low light. Everybody that I've introduced that app to has just gone crazy. It's wonderful. You have Camera Plus with I think it's a built-in macro you can do. And then there's also, long exposure apps. There's a Long Exposure Pro, which is the newest app, and that seems to be a favorite with my big boy photographer friends. There you can mask in the app, so you can photograph Long Exposure Pro, work it, and then mask out what you don't want.
And would you say, if you could break down the time that you spend shooting and then processing, can you kind of give us a ratio of how much time you spend processing work? I mean, I'm sure it's image to image. It depends, but do you spend a lot of time?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, if the light's right and the subject is perfect, and you snap that shot, it can maybe I'll almost always just open it up, crop it in Snapseed, and do a few adjustments, and that's it. But other times, late at night, I'll get on my phone and I'll throw an alien sky in there, or I'll warp it around. I like abstract painting too, so I like to just go off do the 90-degree turn and do things that are unrecognizable.
Painterly, yeah. And when you first jumped on the iPhone and started taking pictures, did you immediately create images that were more painterly, or did you work that in later?
About half and half. One of the and one of my favorite shots, I think that was taken around 2010 or 11, was with an application called Slow Shutter. It was just a one shot, and I believe that I sent it to you guys. It's just very painteresque, and so yeah, a little bit of both.
Do you paint less now that you're kind of channeling the creativity toward the phone and the apps and the images you create that way? Yeah.
You should see me years ago. I used to pack all my colored pencils and my paints, and ever since the iPhone came out, I'm like, hell with that. I just, a little iPhone, and give me, I shoot with a couple Olo lenses, which are fun.
That's what I wanted to ask you also. Are you using auxiliary lenses or accessories? Because some of the images are obviously not visually what that camera lens would see. So,
right.
So you are using little add-on lenses as well?
Oh yeah. I use the Olo clip. I love their fisheye, their wide angle. Yeah, I'll try anything. I buy cheap lenses from China and snap them on, see what I get from there.
So you play.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, for me, it's all about play.
Do you visualize the final image, let's say, that you'll create when you see it often? Or is it usually you take the picture and, as you said, then you'll jump to the app and you'll work on it, maybe work out some of the flaws and then create something? Does the inspiration come more from the moment or more from the process, let's say?
Well, it really half and half. My iPhone is with me every single day. So, to the walks on the beach, the things that I would never, ever expect, I like to photograph because I have it handy. I also have been on a few retreats with some wonderful artists that plan their shoots. And I do plan a few of my shoots with my unwitting models, my nephews and my nieces and my friends, and
dog.
Sometimes, my dog, of course, and try to execute it that way. It never usually turns out the way I want it to, but that would be a skill I would love to hone.
Well, let me say, for example, there's an image that I've seen on your site several times now. It's a boat. I think it's on a river with some brush and some trees hanging over it.
Yeah, it looks very painterly.
It's completely a painterly image. When you first saw that site, did you say to yourself, okay, that's going to be an impressionistic type of image when I'm done with it? Or did that something that just came later as you started playing with it?
Well, Well, I had a little bit of an idea because I was really lucky enough to go to Monet's gardens in Giverny, Paris this last, I think it was May. So I kind of wanted to incorporate a little bit of Impressionism at it, but actually it was something that came out really just by accident because I shoot a lot, which I love, is hipstamatic. And hipstamatic, if you shake the camera, it will change the lens and the film. And so a lot of times, I'm shooting what everybody else is shooting, and I don't want to always shoot the same thing. I get tired. I want to portray it in a little bit of a different manner. So a lot of times, if I get bored, I'll shoot in hipstamatic. I'll shake the phone, and it'll mix up. And for the grace of God, sometimes it chooses a really
Right.
And that's what actually happened with that. It chose an impressionistic, and then I just kind of went with it, and I went, wow, I'm in Monet's gardens, and this works. So,
All right, then. That's
Can you
pretty
imagine
cool.
what he would have done with it?
that's what I because this age is just so. I mean, this tool has just changed photography, and not just it's not just mobile photography. It's changed photography, and it's changed the way people live. I travel to all sorts of places, and a lot of times China, and everybody's got their phone. So it's you walk to the Louvre, and everybody's holding up their phone. So it's
So here's a question for you, okay? You're traveling the world as an artist who is making her way with a phone, and you just said, and everywhere you go, everybody has a phone. Why are you standing out from the crowd? What is it about your work? It all stands out. It's all done well.
Oh, well, thank you for saying so, because I'm always not quite sure. I go on little tangents, and I'll use an app, like you said, for, I don't know, a few weeks, and then I'll change it up and do something else. And
do you think
I think it's because my background is an artist. I'm just looking for things to make pretty in this not so pretty life sometimes.
I think that's a pretty fair way to put it.
But you do work well with the tools that are within the parameters of what you feel comfortable with.
I do.
So that's an important thing.
I do. And I've lost a lot of iPhones in the water and in ponds and different areas, but I always seem to have two. People usually give me one that they haven't upgraded, and that's usually what I use for underwater. I tend to really like the Optrix case a lot, and I've just been known to drop it in a bottom of a koi pond and see what happens.
I was going to ask you just about that, about the underwater work, and if you could mention, I guess first of all, apps and accessories, as you just did, that help you with your underwater work, but also if there's a different approach that you take when you're working underwater, or what you're looking for, or what drew you to that kind of photography.
Well, I'm a swimmer, and I live right by the ocean, so I'm always in the water. And my first Pentax was an underwater camera. And then when I found out that I could actually put the iPhone underwater, that was really way cool. And then when I really trusted the camera, the case, which was the Optrix case, that was really more fun. So a lot of times I'll take the Optrix case, put it on an application such as Camera Sharp, which will continually shoot, and you can tell it how many seconds in between intervals, and how, what I think it maxes out at 82 photos, but a lot of times I'll just stick a selfie stick down there and just let it run, or drop it at the bottom of a pool and have people swim over, because you're bound to get one or two, I think.
Yeah. And let's say you did just snap off 82 shots and you found one that you liked. What do you do with the other 81? You save them or you dump them?
Oh, I dump them usually, but then I save the ones that are maybes, and the one that, in case I lose this one. And
selective editing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And I'm assuming you have the iPhone 6. Which one do you have? Which
the
iPhone
iPhone
do you
6 Plus.
6 Plus. Is there anything that, if you could add specifically to the new camera, the iPhone 7, anything off the top of your head that you would ask to add?
Oh, the optical zoom, I think, would be really cool.
How soon before you're going to upgrade?
When it comes out in a couple days.
Okay. And is that going to reduce your desire for a quote-unquote real camera? Or just back it off a bit?
Yeah. I'm actually, this Olympus E10, it's converted into infrared and full spectrum, and that is a different type of photography that really draws me in, and I would really love to explore that.
And the awards that you've won and the recognition that you received, has it come through Instagram basically, or did you send out your work to competitions and
Well, the
everything?
IPP Awards, I entered that the past couple of years and was totally surprised by that honor this year.
Are you getting any commercial nibblers based on your fine artwork?
I've gotten a few. I have.
That's a good thing. Okay, well deserved.
B&H calling me.
Come on.
Cool. Oh, I just appreciate that people really love my art. I have a really good union job that pays the bills, so it's not something that I have to. Well, it is something that I have to do because it's my work. It's what I do. But yeah.
What do you do to pay the rent, if we may ask?
I am so lucky. I am a stewardess.
Oh,
really? Okay.
Yeah. It's wonderful. And what the iPhone does is it takes away any hesitancy or it takes away from me being afraid to go places. I'm always just a lot more confident when I have my phone. It's maybe an extension of me, I think.
That's terrific.
I guess it all comes together now. You must live near an airport too, right?
That's right. We keep hearing airplanes going over. Is she actually flying during this?
But no, what we do have going is once a year we have a creative photography for the soul that we run on Molokai. We meaning actually I don't. I do a lot of the admin work, but it's Ricky Cook and Dwight Jones, Lynette iPhone Diva, and Jack Davis. And
what's the name of the workshop again?
It's creative photography for the soul.
Okay.
All righty.
Thank you.
Wonderful talking with you and great work. Next, we welcome Ed Kashi back to the show. Ed is a multifaceted veteran photographer with photojournalism, long-form documentary, and filmmaking as part of his long resume, which includes shooting for the likes of New York Times, National Geographic, and the 7 Photo Agency. In 2012, Ed was one of 5 photographers assigned by Time magazine to document Hurricane Sandy using just an iPhone. And through National Geographic, Ed teaches workshops on shooting with the iPhone. For a photographer well-versed in film and digital photography as well as movie making, it'll be interesting to learn how and when he chooses to shoot with an iPhone.
Why would you choose an iPhone over a DSLR?
Well, there are a number of reasons I might choose to shoot, documentary or journalistic work with an iPhone. And one is to be less conspicuous and, have a smaller footprint. Another reason is that it's sort of a different aesthetic, and especially with the different, the social media tools and the way you can, make these pictures, immediately share them. These are, and I know there's, Wi-Fi enabled cameras now, but there's just something about the aesthetic of the iPhone that also is different than shooting with my 35mm camera. So, there's a variety of reasons why I like doing it. It also has become sort of almost an adjunct to my 35mm work, whether I'm working in film, making short documentaries, or, creating a body of still images.
Mm-hmm. And what would you not then shoot with an iPhone?
Well, like any camera, any tool, there's limitations, and the iPhone as a camera has tremendous limitations, in terms of low light, capturing movement if there's not a lot of light. There's working with depth of field and focus, and there's certain very more finer elements to photography that are much harder, if not impossible, to deal with, especially if you're working in dynamic situations, as opposed to, let's say, doing still lives. So, I don't choose to work with an iPhone, ideally in very fast-moving situations, in low light, and certainly if there's any, a lot of action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course.
It's a great tool, and it has its limitations.
Right, it's an amazing tool. And, and the other thing that it does is, it's, again, like if you decide to shoot with a Rolleiflex with film, it's going to slow you down. If you're going to, the choice you make of what tool to use in photography, physically impacts how you do it. So one of the other things about working with my iPhone is in some ways it slows me down, and I work in a more deliberate and careful manner. Mm-hmm. So I find that to be sometimes very refreshing. There's something quite often, I think, there's always the danger of getting into a visual rut when you use the same tool all the time. And so, for me, this is yet another way to remain fresh and dynamic in the way I work.
And did the iPhone then replace another tool in your bag? Like, for example, the Rolleiflex, did you kind of stop shooting? Let's say, for example, you may have brought out a Rolleiflex along with your DSLR, and now you're kind of using that energy with the iPhone, or did the iPhone just kind of create its own world?
Yeah, the iPhone didn't replace another tool. It created a new option in my toolkit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me personally, I viewed using my iPhone the way I view every once in a while picking up one of my film cameras and going out and shooting 1 or 2 rolls of film. Although I tend to have my phone with me a lot more often than I have a film camera. That's the difference.
And that's one of the other beauties of it is that, generally most of us, let's say I'll speak for myself, I have my phone with me virtually all the time, which means I now always have a camera. And one of the things that, so in a sense, one thing it replaced in a way is carrying the Leica around with film. But, I stopped doing that years ago because I found that when I'd come out of the field, because I worked so intensely, I needed a break. I didn't want a camera around my neck or shoulders. I really needed a break.
Understood. Sure.
To stay fresh. But what's so cool now is I get that break, but then I still have this camera with me, and it's quite a formidable camera as well. For all its limitations, the quality of the images it creates are quite beautiful. And as we well know, every year with every new version, it gets better and better.
And what's especially cool about them, they make phone calls.
That's right.
They do? Okay. And have you caught any images with your iPhone that, let's say, you didn't have another camera with you and you used that to catch something that then you later published for straight up photojournalistic work? Or?
Well, yeah, sure. And one of the first examples of that was being on assignment for Time magazine to cover Hurricane Sandy. And I was one of the 5 photographers that was assigned for this 2-day period, and when the hurricane came and then the aftermath. So that was a great example, a very profound example of using your phone camera to cover a breaking news event. And I don't do breaking news. I'm a long form, in-depth, storyteller. But there are times where I have to cover news or these kinds of events. And so, but I've had a number of situations now where I've used my phone camera and it's gone on to be published. Now, being published today, remember, does not necessarily mean in print. Mm-hmm. So
that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and also I have my mobile related work is in exhibitions. Right now, there's something at Noorderlicht in Holland related to the everyday climate change feed, which I'm a part of. And it's a pretty cool idea. As we post new images, then we also send high-res versions to the gallery in Groningen in Holland, and they're printing them on the spot and putting them up. So, there's a couple of years ago, I had grids that I put together, 4 image grids from iPhone pictures that were part of the fence, the photoville.
Yeah.
So, as you guys know, all the lines are blurring, all the old designations or the ones we maybe grew up with, they're all being blown apart and reformed. And the iPhone and that ilk of camera is certainly a central part of that change and disruption.
It's interesting you say that, because early on, one of the first statements you came out was that you have I'm paraphrasing, your iPhone pictures and your camera pictures, and you separated them in a certain way. I don't remember exactly how you put it, but now you're basically, and I was going to ask you, do you ever combine pictures taken on an assignment between your phone and your quote-unquote real cameras? And you just told me, yes, you do.
Absolutely, and I'm trying to avoid, saying real camera. I mean, the reality is an iPhone or a high-end Android, those are real cameras, that we, it's all part of the landscape changing where we need to change how we talk about things.
Yeah.
So always try to catch myself from making that what is really now a false distinction, saying, my Canon is real camera and my iPhone is not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're just different tools.
Yeah. So will there be a time, let's say you're on an assignment or you're doing a project that is primarily with your DSLR, and you have your DSLR around your neck and you're shooting with it. Will there be a moment when you'll feel the need to pull out the iPhone to catch a moment, maybe serendipitously or for another reason? Or is it just kind of one or the other when you have them?
No, I'll absolutely do that. And it's, as I said before, I can't emphasize this enough. It's like a visual, it's like an eye refresher. I remember a few years ago, I was working in northern Nigeria on a pretty intense project about, Boko Haram and Christian Muslim violence, and working, 99% of it with my Canon. And then, we stopped it for gas at some station, and there are these kids who were selling peanuts and bananas, and I took out my iPhone and made this very designy graphic picture of the patterns of their hijabs and so forth. Well, I could have taken that picture with my Canon, but for some reason I didn't, and I wouldn't. But I immediately, almost like without thinking about it, pulled out my iPhone, and it was like sketching. Mm-hmm. And then when I put that away and I pick up my Canon, it's like I've refreshed my eyes.
Interesting.
Understood. Yep, I get it.
Do you have any apps that you particularly use, or not so much?
Yeah, well, I'm not a huge techie guy, but I like working with Pro Camera, and I think that's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that because, Pro Camera is my go-to app because I can get like a 17 meg TIFF out of it when I shoot in that setting. And also I can activate the shutter by touching anywhere on the screen. So it means I don't have to be searching for that button on the bottom of the camera. Right. So that is a huge asset when I'm working out in public. It's a way to even be more incognito, where it's harder for people to tell whether I'm photographing. And there are a number of other, I can be more selective in my focus and my exposure settings using that app. Mm-hmm. So that's my go-to app. But when I'm in a situation where I might have to be shooting like rapid fire and I need to be concerned about buffering, because Pro Camera, the files are so big that even in the iPhone 6s it can buffer, I'll use the iPhone camera, which is an excellent camera, and that doesn't give me quite as big of a file, but it's still a beautiful file. And then I can also shift easily to panoramic or video modes. Mm-hmm. So those are the two capture apps I use. And then for post-production, I use Snapseed, mm-hmm. Which is just a brilliant tool. And then for dissemination, of course, I use Instagram, which leads to Twitter and Facebook.
Right. Actually, I'm glad you brought the Pro Camera up. My next question had to do with the actual handling of the iPhone, which for me is a big problem. I can't seem to find that button when I need to, or get focus in the right spot. And needless to say, there's some glare off the screen that can be a problem. Do you have, other than the app you mentioned, does that pose a problem for you sometimes?
Totally. And I'm knock on wood, I can't believe I've never dropped it.
Mm-hmm. But you shouldn't have said that.
I know. Well, I have dropped it, but I haven't lost it. Anyway,
okay.
No, I mean, that's why I like working with the Pro Camera app. And I'm sure there's others that do this, but that's the one I use, and I'm really happy with it. I find that to be a huge advantage, because I hate having to search for that button. Mm-hmm. It takes my eye off of the scene, and in some cases it really exposes me to what I'm doing. You feel clumsy, whereas the fact that I can just sort of tap anywhere on the screen with my thumb and make a picture is a beautiful thing. I also use like a Mophie case, a battery case, mm-hmm. which not only is a great protector of the phone, but it more than doubles the battery life. So that extra physical size I find to be hugely important. My hands are not huge, but they're big. Mm-hmm. And I find the iPhone with no case feels very delicate, easy to drop, and sort of slippery. So
it is.
Having that bigger case is a huge, also really helps in making it feel a little more firm and solid in my hands.
For me, the biggest issue is really just the holding of it and composing. It still is problematic.
Yeah, the glare thing is a huge problem.
Coming from the world of real cameras and now using phones, what limitations do you have that get you crazy?
Quite often, the standard focal length is too wide, and then you just know that if you're going to zoom in, you're going to diminish the image quality. But again, it's sort of like I use it within its limitations, and also I love shooting wide angle and layered images. So for me, it's not as big of a leap, if you like, aesthetically and even just physically the way I maneuver. If you're someone who is a sports photographer who shoots with 600 mil lenses.
Oh, you're going to go nuts.
You go insane,
Yeah. And when did you first pick up an iPhone? How many generations back? And when did you, let's say, even first embrace it?
Well, I probably got the first iPhone whenever that was, 2007 or something.
So long time, yeah.
Right? It was 2008. But it wasn't, and I played with the phone, but I never took it seriously as a real tool. And then it wasn't really until then my 13-year-old daughter, so that was 5 years ago, turned me on to Instagram.
Okay.
And that's when I sort of saw it as more than just, that's cute, there's a camera on my phone. Plus, then you started to have, like the New Yorker had me do a takeover of their feed. I think I've done 3 or 4 now in the last 5 years for the New Yorker. And, I started to get, and then the time assignment came through. And then it was like, this is real now. I'm not only doing things at a high profile, and I'm getting published and also I'm getting paid. It's a source of, not a huge source of income, but it is an income stream, and the sky is the limit. I mean, there are opportunities now. I've done for the last 2 years a gig for UPS around the holidays that, I've got probably the biggest day rate of my 40-year career with that. Huh. Who would have thought, right? But will that come again? Is that sustainable? Who knows? Because the world we're living in today, these opportunities come and go. And it's not like it was when I began, where you'd get in with a client, and as long as you did a good job, they keep on hiring you. It doesn't work that way anymore, because not only do the clients change, but the formats change, so it's a very, so this is all such a weird time. Exciting time. It's an exciting time, but it can be a very discomforting time too.
Well, it seems like you've embraced it pretty well, I'd say. And so it does seem that there are maybe not more jobs, but can you give us kind of a ratio of the amount of, when work comes to you, it's increasingly iPhone related, or that's just a few examples?
I don't see an increase in it, but it's like a stable, it's like a small part of my practice, if you like.
All right. Another question in dealing with, let's say, your subjects, when you're dealing with a person and you're in an intimate setting, do you see a reaction, or positive or negative, in the way they are the way you approach them, or more so the way they are at ease or not at ease with an iPhone compared to a DSLR?
I think it depends. I would say overall, yes, people are still more comfortable, if you like, or let's say they're less uncomfortable with the iPhone camera. Mm-hmm. But, like everything, it's changing too. I think, if you're on the streets of Baghdad or even New York City and you point your phone camera at somebody, I think at this point it's not like, oh, that's cute. I think they're going to think, hey, this dude's taking my picture. Yeah. And I think, again, these things are these definitions and these roles are changing so rapidly. Yeah. And the world is smart. I mean, it's not like it used to be. Yeah. There's not as much naivete about photography. There's more concern about, because of the internet, who are you? Why are you doing this? Where's it going to appear?
Yeah, I was always kind of curious when I shoot someone with my iPhone, if they're giving me more of that iPhone look, maybe as opposed to taking it seriously to some degree. And obviously you're in situations where they may be very intense and no one is expecting a smiley face, but they may react differently to seeing an iPhone brought out than they would to their to a DSLR, and that may be positive or negative for the photo you want to get.
I think in general, I would agree with you, but I think what I've come to learn is that it's a matter of who's on the other end of that thing.
Right.
To some degree, that whole notion that certainly I think I grew up with, and maybe some of you grew up with, like, well, I'll use a Leica because it's quiet and it's smaller and people won't notice me. How is anyone not going to notice me?
Right. Right.
That's impossible. So it's how you use the tool. It's how you move through the world. It's how you look at people. It's how you position yourself. That has more to do with than the size or the sound of the equipment.
Have you used the connectivity of the phone in your professional work, where you're sending in something to an editor that you otherwise would have had to wait and get home, put it in your computer, and then to the editor? Or has that not really happened yet?
Well, absolutely. Well, it happened with the Sandy thing, and then a year later, I did a follow-up for NBC.com, and we were sending the work out from the field. And then when I've done takeovers for Open Society Foundation or the New Yorker, or a few other feeds, I'll often be posting from the field. So that is absolutely an integral part of what makes this device such an amazing tool.
What are you looking forward to the new iPhone 7, and will you jump on it as soon as it comes out?
Yeah, I will. I mean, I'm not going to get it like the first day or week, but I'll definitely get it within the first month or so. I haven't heard enough about it to know. I just know that the camera will be improved. Right. Has there ever been a new version of the phone that wasn't better in some way?
Correct.
I'd love to see the battery life improved. Yeah.
Let me ask you one more question. It sounds silly, but it's really not. And I've been asking this to a lot of people lately who've been using their phones increasingly for taking pictures. How often do you clean the lens on your phone?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Probably not often enough.
Because I'm amazed how many people, they post out pictures and you can tell that there's like French fry grease on the front of their phone.
It's amazing.
And no one cleans it out. No one does it.
True.
Okay. Well, is there anything you want to plug? You want to mention?
Let's see. Well, I mean, I'd like to mention that my agency 7 Photo is celebrating its 15th anniversary this fall, and we're going to have 3 nights of projections outside of Grace Plaza near the ICP school on 6th Avenue.
Oh yeah.
October 6, 7, 8.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's pretty cool that people can just come by, between 6:30 and 9 o'clock for 3 nights in a row, and there'll just be images and short films being projected. Hopefully the weather will be good.
Always good talking with you, Ed.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks for your patience in getting this together.
Brendan O'Shea is a teacher and a photographer from Cork, Ireland. He posts most of his work to Flickr, and a shot he took in a park in Denmark was chosen to be included in the high-profile ad campaign shot on iPhone 6. We'll speak with Brendan on how that came to be and how the iPhone has energized his love for photography.
In December 2014, an anonymous email hit my Flickr account. I ignored it because you get these random emails from people wanting you to contact them or wanting to use your images, and I ignored it. A week later, the email came back again, and this time, they were, pressing on me to urgently contact them.
What was
an email address? Sorry, yeah.
No, what was the email address that was it?
It didn't say occupant, did it?
No. It was a Flickr account. Like, the reason why I ignored the original email is because when I went to look at it was a Flickr mail that came into me. When I looked at the account associated with the Flickr mail, there were no photographs posted there. And that usually is a signal for me to ignore whoever is sending it. That if it's something worthwhile, then the person would have an active stream of photographs on their Flickr account, but they had nothing.
Right.
So then they supplied me with an email address, would give me 0 details until they sent the non-disclosure agreement across to me. Sent the non-disclosure agreement across to me. I saw on the heading, Apple, and the excitement built, as you could imagine, when what is it that, Apple wants me to be associated with. No details were forthcoming. That it was just, they were saying that it was at this stage, it was just research that they were doing and that they maybe or maybe not interested in an image of mine, and then they requested that I send them the original file for the photograph that I took in Copenhagen of the Superkilen Park. And also I sent photographs from that I had also shot on the iPhone 6 from Berlin to them. They licensed those photographs and ultimately ran with the Copenhagen photograph for their campaign. What seems to happen from talking to other photographers who are on the campaign is that initially they would contact you for that they're interested in one image, but then inquire, do you have other images? So then I submitted other images to them, and they ultimately they licensed 3 images from me and ran with 2. They ran with the one that was on their outdoor campaign, and they also used one in a TV advert in the United States.
Mm-hmm. How many photographers were contacted? Do you have any idea?
I think based on the book that they gave the photographers from the campaign last year, I think it was in the 6-7 month campaign that they ran last year, I think it was about 150 photographers. I may be wrong in that, but I think ultimately it was about 150. Initially, in the first phase of the campaign, it wouldn't have been more than, I'm going by memory, but I don't think it would have been more than 40. I think that the initial campaign was also on the apple.com website, but I think with the later iterations of the campaign, there were more and more photographers brought in, and I think it totaled 150. I may be wrong on that, but I think it was about that.
And this is all from existing stock photography. Nobody was given assignments.
To the best of my knowledge, nobody was given, well, I wasn't given any assignment or request to produce a certain type of image. That these were people who, like that, I think that there were some well-known photographers in the initial campaign, people like Pei Ketron, but by and large, the others who were chosen were people ranging from, like there was one guy on it who got the iPhone 6, and it was the first photograph that he shot. The first photograph he shot was of his little daughter. He posted it on Flickr. And it went, all over the world on big, huge billboards.
And do you think the Flickr was the main avenue for people finding the work, or was there?
No, I would imagine that Instagram probably was the main avenue. I think that it shows how much effort went into it. That they also scoured Flickr and Facebook and Instagram, and really tried to come up with as many images as they could in terms of selection.
And did you hashtag your images, or did you note that they were shot by iPhone?
I did hashtag it, that I would have had iPhone 6 on it. With Flickr, Flickr retains the EXIF data, so it gives information about the type of camera that it was shot on, so that would have been there also. But in terms of they doing a search on Flickr for iPhone 6, it would have been the hashtag that would have turned it up.
And did Flickr step in any way?
Never to the best of my knowledge, never with me, and never to the best of my knowledge with anybody, any of the other photographers that I've been involved with.
Now, the pictures that were selected that were used in this campaign, what's the status of the rights of those photographs for you right now? Does Apple own those outright, or are you able to monetize it in any way on your own now?
Apple have it licensed for a period of time, which I can't use it in terms of other commercial activities, but the image is mine.
Okay.
It sounds like you're in touch with several of the other photographers who are involved in the campaign. Were you put together with them, or did you kind of find each other just through Flickr and Instagram?
We found each other, and it was through Twitter. And as you can imagine, with an experience like this, because we were, nothing had been done like this before. That they were, gathering unknown photographers and putting their work on, World Gallery. So there was great excitement that we were sharing together, and a little community, sprung up on Twitter. Might have been up to 10 of us who were actively, looking to locate where the billboards were, looking to find, in the print magazines where the images were, because Apple made it a treasure hunt. And it's quite clever on their part, that we were given a list of locations that the images were on billboards in different parts of the world. But we were on a daily basis, we were, people would, tweet us or send us mails of finding it in places like Bogota and Santiago and Dubai, Sydney.
Right.
It was a crazy magical experience, if you can imagine.
The original people to contact you were the Media Arts Lab. That's
Yeah.
Okay, and they're the ones that sent you the original non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah.
Okay, and what terms did they kind of ask?
So from December to March the 4th, I told nobody except my wife, who was next to me when the original email came in. And, you shouldn't keep secrets from your wife. So she was the only person that knew. So on March the Friday prior to March the 4th, I got a telephone call from Media Arts Lab to say that congratulations, your photographs, part of the Apple World Gallery. They'll be on billboards in 70 cities, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't believe it at all. So it was only until I got a mail from a Flickr friend who was in Berlin and sent me a photograph of it on a big billboard in Berlin that I began to realize how big it was. But for the intervening time between the non-disclosure to the campaign going live, I didn't talk to anyone at all about it,
Well, they were contacting you, though, I imagine, right, during that period for arranging for the terms of the licensing and the fee that you would charge?
There would have been a lot of toing and froing between the agency and myself from the initial contact, and all the things about the contract, the licensing fee and all of that would have been agreed before before going live.
Right. And at that point, you still didn't know what image they were going to use, or had they?
No, they had licensed, at that stage, they had licensed 2 images, and they ran with one in the initial campaign. But I up until, I think it was probably until June, where I was told that the second image wasn't going to be used.
I see. And they licensed them for the same amount of money, or did they?
Yeah,
they did. Okay.
Yep.
And were you handling the negotiations, or were there negotiations, or how did that work?
How the negotiations worked was that what they offered, I accepted. Because when these things come to your door, you have to weigh it up. That if you you're not going to say no when there's exposure like that on offer.
Were you satisfied with the financial compensation? Do you feel that it's fair and equal to maybe any other situations you've had?
For me, when I was presented with this opportunity, the financial reward did not pop into my head at all. That I'm not a professional photographer, that it's something that that I do in my free time, which gives me an awful lot of enjoyment. The idea that a photograph that I took on an iPhone was going to go worldwide like that, it was magical.
Right.
So that it was a small amount that they paid me in comparison to other licensing agreements that that I've been part of or that I know of. That if you go online and you go to the stock photo calculator and you put in the territory that was shown in and the duration that it was shown in, then it is a distance away from what Apple paid me, But at no point was that my motivation.
I understand totally. I mean, we all as photographers, we're all in that same boat where we have to balance, the payday with the exposure, with everything else that comes with the opportunities that are given.
The whole experience for me was something that I could never have dreamt of, that a photograph that I would take would, be displayed on, billboards of 11 floors, 11 stories high, and in print magazines like New York. I got to see it myself in Milan and in Tokyo, and it's an experience that will live with me for the rest of my life. And
absolutely,
that I wasn't going to be mercenary about it, and think that this is an opportunity to make a killing. Not at all. That as I say, that I'm not a professional photographer. Photography, I think that if I were a professional photographer, it would fill me with dread. Whereas at the moment, photography, is it's a frustrating process. But when I get it right, it's a personal thing, and it gives me great satisfaction. I would imagine, again, this is guessing for me, but that if Apple, if an email comes into somebody saying, "Hey, we found this photograph," suddenly you see the name Apple. the overriding emotion that you will have is fear of missing out. And I think that if you stop and say, hey, campaign is, if you want me, you have to pay X amount of dollars. What Apple will do, or the agency will do, is that they'll move to the next photograph. They'll move to the next. The thing is that it's not a photographer's campaign; it's a photography campaign.
Okay.
This is a good distinction, a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, and that is obviously something that we all deal with. It's an issue that professional and semi-professional photographers we're always dealing with. We don't want to get passed over for the next one. We realize how many photographers are out there, and amateur, professional, and otherwise. So, I mean, it's obviously an understandable decision.
The dealings that I had with them were absolutely excellent. They were very kind to me. They sent print magazines from the image appeared in.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the campaign, like all the photographers got the book. They also sent me one of the posters, which had the image with emblazoned on it, shot in iPhone 6. So it was a really, really good relationship that I had with them.
That's cool.
Has this led to any other work since?
Yes, since then, I suppose there has been kind of a constant stream of kind of things like I'm doing with yourselves here, interviews, features in magazines. That it brought me to London as part of Meet the iPhone Photographer in March of this year. I was the first photographer ever to be invited to talk about mobile photography in the Royal Photographic Society in Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
I was also out in Indonesia, in Jakarta, talking about my photography and mobile photography and doing workshops there, and should be back out there next year to do more workshops. What I began to do myself, and was in the collaboration with 2 galleries here in Ireland, is to begin to give mobile photography workshops. My background is in teaching in university, so it was a logical step to combine what is and what was my hobby of photography with education. And the workshops that I do are something that I really, really enjoy, and there's great feedback with participants on it. I have one coming up next Saturday in Dublin. So that kind of opportunity, there has been maybe 1 or 2 other things in the pipeline, but it's that I've had a lot of opportunities in terms of travel and exposure with photography since then.
It sounds to me that your photography took off when you had a device with you all the time, and I think that's normal for everybody. I mean, the more you do something, the better you get, the more you think about it, and you develop your art in that way. Is that fair to say that having the iPhone improved your work?
Unquestionably, because when I was giving the talk in Bangkok, that I'd spent quite a bit of time reflecting on my photographic journey, and it made me think of the Bresson quote about your first 10,000 photographs are your worst. And I think it's a very outdated quote, because I think
100,000, right?
Yeah, like I'm just back from Asia, and I brought back maybe 25,000 photographs that I took over 2 months. So in terms of photographic journey that I was on, I would have never shot 10,000 photographs in a year, because most of the time the camera would have spent its being kept in the drawer, like the Fuji and the Nikon are at the moment, where I had a camera with me 24/7. All these photographic opportunities, photo ops that I would walk past before and say, oh, that would make a great photo. Now I was able to capture them. And because of this, I began to see and think photographically much more actively, and to shoot much, much more, and to make lots and lots of mistakes. What I really enjoyed about the iPhone in the initial stages was that the limitations of the camera forced me to become creative. And I don't know if you've seen the work that I did about 2012, 2013 with, kind of blurred images with the iPhone, with intentional camera movement. Like when I look back at those now, I see that I would never have done that if the camera had been better on the iPhone, but it was because of the limitations, the small sensor, the bad and low light, that I was able to produce those. So my photographic journey has always, I think, really, really took off with the iPhone. I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed it much, much more than the other cameras. It's easy to say why. I think because it fits in my hand so comfortably, and it's a fixed lens. It's something else that I didn't realize about why I improved as a photographer. It's
Absolutely,
because having a fixed lens forced me to become much more considerate about how I'm composing and what I'm composing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I really, really benefited from that. For me, it has become, kind of an organic, instinctive thing about how I employ the iPhone, how I interact with it. And I'm not like, when I'm shooting with the iPhone, there's rarely a case that I feel, I wish I had, the Nikon, or I wish I had the Fuji.
Now, on the photo that has been used for the campaign, did they process it? Did they change it in a way that you wouldn't have changed it? Did they add contrast? Did they crop it to a degree? Or, well, first of all, what did they do to it, and was it something that you would not have done?
One thing I did notice from the billboards we have around here in town, there is some kind of a notation that it was captured by, but they allude to the fact they did something to it.
What they have on it is that they have used software for the enlargement.
Yeah.
Now, I can't remember the exact phrasing for that, but I remember seeing it, and that it's on every single billboard that they would have it like that.
Okay, because obviously a phone, out of the phone, it's not doing a billboard, not that well anyway.
No, but in terms of the image that I sent them and the image that they used, the only change that they made was the cropping. Because it was a square image, in some of them, they have it cropped horizontally, or in kind of landscape mode.
Mm-hmm.
They also blurred the faces of the 4 people in it.
Okay. And did they inquire about model releases, if you had model releases?
Yes.
They
did?
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Without going into it too much, I can make a broad statement about that. I think that if you look at the campaign, wherever there is a person visible, most of them are blurred out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, my last question is: were there any billboards in Cork?
Cork is the European headquarters for production for Apple. It employs 6,000 people here in Cork. There were no billboards at all in Ireland, and there was no billboards in Copenhagen, where the photograph was taken also. It's a small market. You can see the sense of it.
Yeah. But still, you'd think they want to put one like near your home somewhere. No,
that would have been nice.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, I really appreciate your time, and obviously, I know you've spoken about this a lot. So I, appreciate you, rehashing a lot of the old stories.
Enjoy the conversation.
Thanks very much,
All
Brendan.
right, good
really
chatting.
appreciate it. Okay.
Yeah.
Have
Take
a
care.
good evening.
If you'd like to reach out to us with your questions or comments, email us at podcast@bhphoto.com.
Needless to say, some of the more interesting things about the new iPhone 7 have nothing to do with making phone calls. It has to do with taking pictures. The new iPhone 7 features an improved optical system, 2 lenses. It has a faster, wider aperture. It has optical zoom, 6-element lens, and quad LED True Tone flash, which is an advanced flash system. Basically, it's a better camera than the iPhone 6S was. And lest we forget, the camera is water-resistant down to 3 feet for up to 30 minutes of time. We'll wrap up the show with Olivier Laurent, who has actually had a chance to use the new iPhone 7. Olivier Laurent is a journalist and the editor of Lightbox at Time.com. He's also one of the few fortunate people who has an iPhone 7 before the rest of us. How did you get it? And then tell us a little bit about the new phone.
Well, most camera manufacturers, and Apple included, wants their product to be reviewed before it actually comes out. So Apple select a few media companies, and we got one.
Aha, okay.
How'd they choose you? How'd you get choice? And a lot of people at Time.com.
Yeah, we want to know.
There's about like 3 or 4 people that would write about the iPhone, both on the tech team and on the photo team.
Any non-disclosure agreements needed to be signed, or any promises made?
No promises made. Like, we're always like very independent in what we can say about it. The only note is like the embargo on when the reviews can come out.
Is it safe to assume that you had an iPhone 6 or 6S?
I had a 6S before.
Okay,
yeah. 6S Plus.
What's the difference now? Do you see a big difference between the last generation and the new?
Well, in terms of the design itself, apart from the finishes and the colors, they look very much the same, and they almost weight the same as well.
What about the picture quality?
This is a photo podcast. Well, the picture quality is like with any new iPhone and with any other like brand's new phone, new versions, you get an increase in the picture quality. So in this case, like it's a, you know, like you have to talk about the 7 and the 7 Plus. There's difference between the two. So 7 has a new lens, like a 12 megapixel lens, f1.8,
Right.
which is an improvement on what it had before.
I think it was 2.2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Something like that, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
12 megapixel.
So already, like with the 7, you get a bump in the specs and in the picture quality compared to the 6S. But it's really the 7 Plus that's very interesting for photographers. And in this case, it's because it has two lenses. One is 28mm and the other one is 56mm.
Right.
Which allows already like an actual optical zoom, a 2 times optical zoom, and allows for better quality of the image.
There's also image stabilization, but on the wide angle only, I think it is.
No, it's on both.
On both, okay.
I believe so, yeah.
All right. So that also, for low light, that's
and it
terrific.
was on the 6S Plus, they had optical image
Yeah.
stabilization
Okay.
too. So.
Like, see, so the difference with the optical image stabilization is that the 6S, so normal size 6S, didn't have it. Now the 7 has it.
Right.
And the 7 Plus has it, of course, because the 6S Plus had it.
But the big deal is the dual lens.
Yeah.
And that's only on the Plus.
That's only on the Plus.
Okay. And what else is the big deal?
Well,
is there another big deal?
There's the quad process. The processors are stronger in them.
So
also.
the processors are stronger, but like what's very interesting about the two lenses, it's not just the fact that it allows you to get a sort of optical zoom, like to be able to do more portrait-like photograph without distortion of the lens, but it's the fact that the image processor uses both lenses to create the image. So you're not taking a photo with one lens, you're taking a photo with two lenses, which leads to more information.
Mm-hmm.
So you get like better highlights, for example, like better details, and better low light photos.
And it's sort of like HDR in a sense, the way it's basically...
It's using the mechanism of HDR in a way, yes. Yeah. Not to the extreme of like what HDR does, but
it's not going to make everything look like a Maxwell Parrish
Exactly.
painting.
It just makes it like makes the color brighter, the details more refined, and in the light situation,
it sees
greater.
deeper into the shadows and deeper into the highlights.
Yeah. You're not going to get like DSLR quality in low light that with the 7 Plus, but you're going to get a much better improvement compared to the 6S
last
Plus.
generation.
Exactly.
Right.
And is it easy to switch back and forth between the lenses? What's the
yeah, so like
handle
everything is automatic. Like you don't realize that you're using both lenses. But when you want to zoom in, you just tap on the screen. There's a little one-time indicator, and then you just type on that, and it goes to 2 times.
Okay, all right.
Very easy.
And I guess the FaceTime camera is a little bit better too, right? That's what I'm seeing here. You got 7 megapixels.
Yeah, great jump in resolving power there also. That's
it'd be great for selfies.
Yeah, everything's looking better here.
And, FaceTime calls and anything like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Retina flash, and also has 1080 video on the FaceTime side. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The screen is the same or a little bit brighter. I read a couple little remarks about that.
Yeah, see, the screen on the 7 Plus is much better than before. It allows the photos to really pop in terms of colors.
Mm-hmm.
I was over the weekend. I was on the beach and I took a picture of a kite flying, and the colors against the white sky, like the blue sky, was incredible. Like better than what I had with the 6S.
Interesting.
For sure.
Interesting.
Anything about, let's say, burst shooting? Anything? I guess it's all the same. Probably it already shoots pretty fast.
Exactly. It shoots like it's already shot really, really quickly, and now it's just like it processes it even more quickly. So.
And what about the flash? The flash is improved. It's a quad LED True Tone flash.
Exactly.
Yeah. What is that? What's the story with that?
It's basically analyze the ambient light that you have in the room or wherever you are, and compensate to make sure that the subject is correctly exposed in the skin colors and all that.
So it's advanced autofill in a sense. Would that be a correct way of describing it?
It's one way to describe it, yes.
That's what it sounds like. Okay, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we spoke to some photographers, in preparation for this, and first of all, the optical zoom was the number one thing. So Apple's given us that. And waterproof was another one, and a little more
water
sturdy.
resistant.
Water resistant.
Yes.
All right. Did
Big
we figure
difference
that out
with
yet?
waterproof.
Have you dropped it in your toilet yet?
We actually, we actually did a test in the office where we just dropped it in a bucket of water, and it was functioning perfectly right after.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about the person who held it underwater? Did they survive?
Yeah, they did. It's a small bucket.
So there's no depth rating. I imagine it's.
I think it's 3 feet. If I'm
Yeah,
not
I believe so. Like if you fall in the swimming pool, it's not gonna ruin your phone.
Right.
That's basically
And you drop it in the-
I
what
think
they
it's
do.
3 feet for up to a half hour. Is
Yeah,
I think
that's
what
what
the
they
rating,
mention.
IP67 or whatever
Yeah,
that is. Yeah,
that's what they mention. Yes,
Right.
and like for a photographer, like a professional photographer in the field, that's like it's important.
Sure.
You want to know that, like, you know, if you're on an assignment somewhere, if it's going to start raining, if there's going to be something happening, like, you know, that your phone, which is also like the way for you to communicate with the outside world in case something goes wrong, it's not going to be ruined by
It
a little bit
also
of
means
Or a
that it
rainstorm.
also
I
means
mean,
it's
Yeah,
rain
humidity.
is the big deal. I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
Humidity also. Say
And
you're working
humidity.
if you're working in tropical zones,
Exactly.
humidity could be your real bear, and here it's just better sealed.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And the sensor is the same from what we understand. Is there any other than the sensor itself? mean,
Yeah, I
it's
think the sensor is
backside
the same.
illuminated
Like,
sensor.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Okay. And how about just the general handling and the manipulation? Is there anything new that we're dealing
Since the design is very similar to the previous one, you don't really feel a difference. I guess the biggest difference you'll feel is when you start pushing that home button, which is not really a button anymore. It's more of a 3D touch almost.
with? Oh yeah.
It's like that give you a little haptic feedback.
Can I see?
Like, yeah, like it makes you believe that you're actually pushing a button, but you're not pushing it.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. You don't even feel anything.
exactly.
Cool. Well, it looks great.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
John, show our listeners.
Okay, here you go. I'm taking a selfie. Okay. Cool.
But yeah, like everything else is very similar in terms of design. So of course you feel the difference in terms of speed, but that's like in terms of feeling, that's the only difference.
And what's the word around the office? Are people going to be buying it tomorrow? Or-
Around the office, I don't know, but like
Yeah.
so far I've seen like a lot of positive review. It's not a revolution. I'd say that if you're, you know, like if you have a 6S and if you're upgrading to iOS 10, you're going to feel like you have a brand new phone already.
Yeah.
So then it's a matter of like, what do you wait until next year where there's lots of rumors that it's going to be, you know, a big change for the iPhone, especially for the 10 years anniversary of the iPhone.
I think it's just so funny if you really think about it. Apple comes out with a new phone, and what's the big conversation about? How it takes pictures. It has nothing to do with communicating
Completely.
via voice.
It completely
Everything
changed.
is about taking pictures.
It was very interesting a few years back when you saw the growth of the iPhone. Like you look at Flickrs and the most popular cameras on Flickrs, and the iPhone was climbing to the charts. It's like what's very interesting is that mobile phone have made photography easy for everyone, in the sense that like you look at the camera app on a phone, and you have one button, and that's mainly it. And for a lot of people, like my mom, my friends and all this, they don't want to be looking at the DSLR with all the features and all the little dials that they have to turn, and they don't know if they're going to get the right shot. With the iPhone and with the other phones, like it really...
It's as point and shoot as it gets.
Exactly.
More point and shoot than a point and shoot camera.
And that's why the point and shoot camera market completely like collapsed after the popularity of the iPhone.
Now, by the way, and again, this is maybe I'm breaking the NDA, but the new Canon 5D Mark IV, okay, Mark V, the next one will make phone calls, but only local. Okay, so we're changing. It's catching up. No word from Nikon yet. No word from Nikon.
Okay, so you do have to send the phone back eventually, or it's yours?
Yeah, it's a loaner.
Okay.
You know, by the way, unbeknownst to Olivier, we slipped him a Mickey before, and after he falls asleep, his eyes are just starting to dribble a bit. We're going to commandeer his phone and give it a real road test, and that'll be part 2 of today's show.
And use a water had a weird taste.
Okay, so I think that's a good place to end it. But let me just ask, after you send it back, will you be buying the 7 or the 7 Plus, or are you going to hold off and use your 6S?
It's going to be hard to go back to the 6S after playing for a few weeks with the 7 Plus, that's for sure. I'll see.
Good answer.
The phone sound quality is that good, huh?
I haven't made a phone call in ages.
That's what I was fishing for.
I've done FaceTime, I've done like texting.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and be sure to leave us a review on iTunes. On behalf of John, Jason, and myself, thank you so much for joining us.